Good morning everyone, how are you today? I just thought I'd come on and share with you the pens that I have written dry since the 28th of December. Now that video I shared with you, it was where I had inked up all of my fountain pens, which ended up being 51 pens in total, which took me by surprise. I didn't realize I had that many. And so I've actually written, I think it's 17 of them dry so far. And I just thought I'd go through each of them with you, and what I had them inked with and whether or not I found it a good pairing or not. I'm really sorry. It's very hot here today here in Australia, and I've got this portable air conditioner on behind me, which you can probably hear, and it's making a noise, but it's just too hot to sit here without it on. So hopefully you can still hear me and understand me. Now I'll just put that to the side. I've got my trusty Endless 3/4 notebook with the Tomoe River paper. So let's get into it. So the first pen I wrote dry was this Conklin Durograph in the Demo Rose Gold finish with an Omniflex nib, and I had it inked with Robert Oster Desk Bandit, the Great Owl. This was a beautiful pairing. I really enjoyed it. In saying that, this flex nib doesn't have a lot of flex in it because it's a steel nib, but the ink just flowed beautifully in it. And as you can see here, the ink has a little bit of chroma shading in it, so it's kind of like a grey ink with like a lilac sort of mauve color coming through it as well. It's really pretty. So that was a great pairing. The next pen I had was the TWSBI Eco in the white rose gold finish with a medium nib, and I had that inked with Diamine Claret. Now last time I used the pen, I'd actually pulled all the nib section out and put it back in, and I think I hadn't put it back in properly because there was a lot of burping and it just kept spilling ink out all the time. So in the end I got so frustrated. I used a fair bit of it, but I got sick of how it was behaving, so I pulled it all apart, cleaned it, and then I did a little test and it was working fine again. So yeah, so my fault for that one. Next pen that I wrote dry was this little Winsung Demo in yellow with a fine nib, and I had it inked with Robert Oster Orange. Now the Robert Oster Orange is quite a light coloured ink. It's a little bit lighter than Robert Oster's Orange Zest, and I found with the fine nib it probably wasn't coming through as bright as it would in another pen. So I think going forward, if I was to ink these pens up, I'd probably put a darker ink colour in them, being a fine nib. The next pen I had inked up was the Lamy All-Star in Tourmaline with a medium nib, and I had it inked with Pilot Oroshizuko Kujaku. That was a beautiful pairing. I mean, the Pilot Oroshizuku inks are gorgeous anyway and flow beautifully, but in this pen it was quite a wet writer, and it was just a pleasure to write with. The next one is my Pilot Metropolitan Red Wave, and I had it, it's got a medium nib, and I had it inked with a Warringal Henry Jekyll. Now that's quite a new ink to me. It's like a dirty sort of red, like a rusty red colour. Not quite a rusty colour, but you get my drift. It's not like a bright, vibrant red. I really enjoyed it in this pen. It wrote beautifully, and I love the colour of that ink. So that was a good pairing. The next one is that right? Yep. Next one I wrote dry was the TWSBI Diamond 580 in clear with a fine nib, and I had it inked with Diamine Writer's Blood. Now this Diamine Writer's Blood is quite a saturated wet ink, so it worked very well in this fine nibbed pen. Yes, the next pen I wrote dry was this Conklin Durograph Abalone Nights. It has an Omniflex nib, and it was inked with Sailor Shikiori Yamadori. Also a really lovely pairing. It was beautiful to write with. My next pen was this Conklin All-American in Raven Black with a medium nib, and I had it inked with Monteverde California Teal. Now I find this pen writes a little bit dry, so the California Teal, although it looked great in it, I just found it wasn't that real sort of red sheening, saturated look of the California Teal wasn't coming through with this pen. So I probably wouldn't put that ink in this one again. The next pen I had inked up was this little Sailor Compass Olive with a medium fine nib, and I had it inked with Noodler's Bulletproof Black. The next pen I wrote dry was this Visconti Van Gogh, the novel reader, with a medium nib, and I had it inked with Diamine Sherwood Green. This one. Okay, so the next pen I actually didn't write dry. It ended up emptying it. It's the TWSBI Diamond 580 in the Smoke Rose Gold finish with a medium nib, and I had it inked with Robert Oster Flaming Blue. Now these medium nibs on these TWSBI Diamonds, well on mine at least, they write a lot finer than what a normal medium nib would. And I just found this Robert Oster Flaming Blue, it's quite a dry ink. So I didn't enjoy the combination very well. I just found the ink was too dry for this particular nib. So that was a pass on that one. I just decided to it was upsetting me. I know that sounds silly, but I just wasn't enjoying it. And I thought, if I'm not enjoying it, this is just silly. So I emptied it and cleaned it out. The next pen I wrote dry was my Just Turnings Matte Rainbow with a medium nib, and I had it inked with Pilot Aroshizuku Konpeki. Beautiful. I mean, this is a beautiful writer, so I find whatever ink I put in it just works really well. The next pen I wrote dry was this little Pilot Kakuno in the clear finish with a medium nib, and I had it inked with Robert Oster Green at Night, and that just flowed beautifully. It worked really well. Great writer. It's not too heavy in the hand. It's an inexpensive pen. So yeah, that was great. Next pen I wrote dry was this Franklin Christoph Model 20 in vintage green with a medium nib, and I had it inked with Diatramente's Johann Sebastian Bach. That was a sample from Pen Friend TB, and I quite like that ink. It's different from anything else I have in my collection, so it was really good to try it out. The next pen I wrote dry was this Visconti Rembrandt White Pearl with a fine nib, and I had it inked with Pilot Aroshizuku Yamabudo, and this Visconti has a really, really fine nib. It writes very fine, so I find I have to put a more saturated wet ink in it for it to write the way I want it to write. Oh no, this is the next one. The next one I wrote dry was this TWSBI Eco Clear with a broad nib, and I had it inked with Robert Oster Morning Mist. And TWSBI Ecos, especially with the medium and the broad nibs, they're so enjoyable to use. They handle shimmer inks really well. So this, I mean, even though the Morning Mist wasn't a shimmer ink, it was a pleasure to write with. And lastly, we have the Lamy All-Star in Azure finish with a medium nib, and I had it inked with Diamine Aurora Borealis. Another really good pairing. It was really enjoyable to use. It's got a very smooth nib on it for a medium nib, and the Aurora Borealis is almost like, let me, if I can, where is it? Yeah, it's like a tealy sort of greeny bluey colour. Really pretty. I should try and hold that up to you so you can see. But yeah, so that was really, really enjoyable to use as well. So they're the 17 pens that I wrote dry. Now, some of these pens I'm actually going to move on to new homes. Um, the reason being, I didn't realise I had so many pens, and I want to make room for new pens going forward. But I also get quite overwhelmed if I have too much excess. And being in this hobby, it's very easy to fall down the rabbit hole and get caught up in all of that and end up having much more than you ever imagined. Same with any hobby, really. You know, if you're passionate about it and you put your heart and soul into it, you end up accumulating a lot of stuff. So I know some people who would never ever dream of getting rid of a pen, but for me it's also a way to fund new pen purchases going forward as well. I don't have this endless budget that I can just spend on pens. I have to be mindful of what I spend. So the ones that are going to go to new homes is this little Wing Sung in the demo yellow finish. Now, bearing in mind, I'm still keeping 2 of these. I've already given one away. I'm going to be giving this one away, and then I'm keeping the blue one and the pink one at this stage. So that's one that's going. This is another one that's going. Well, these 2 actually. And although I love them and they're great writers, I already have the Lamy LX in Marin, and I have my Lamy Safari and Cozy Cream, and I have my Lamy Vista. So I feel like I don't need to have multiples of this pen. The other thing I've worked out over the years is I'm not that person that has to collect every single colour wave of a pen. Some people out there have beautiful collections of like every single TWSBI that's ever been released, and every single Lamy that's ever been released, or every single Kaweco colour wave that's ever been released, and they're just the most beautiful collections. But I think for me, I'm not that person. So I'm just going to move those on to a new home as well. This one, this little Pilot Metropolitan, that will be moved on to a new home. And the reason I say that is I've had it for a few years. I've loved using it. I've enjoyed using it. But I also feel like it's time for it to go to a new home, and for me to say goodbye to it, for it to go to a new home where it'll be appreciated and used. So that's going to go. The TWSBI Diamond 580, that's going to go to a new home. I have 3 other TWSBI Diamond 580s. I have my pink one, which my husband and the kids gave to me like nearly 7 years ago, and then I have the white rose gold finish and the smoke rose gold finish. So I don't feel like I need a 4th one of those pens, if that makes sense. Next one I'm going to move on is this TWSBI Eco with a broad nib. That's also going to go to a new home. I've got other TWSBI broad nib pens, so I feel like I can comfortably let go of that one and not feel upset about it. Now this little Sailor Compass, I've really enjoyed using this. This is my first and only Sailor pen. It is the bottom end of the pen scale. But I feel like it's time for it to go to a new home as well, because I'm actually wanting to try a higher end Sailor Pro Gear Slim fountain pen this year. That's kind of on my wish list. So I'm thinking of, letting go of that and trying something new. And then I'm also getting rid of these 2 pens. Now, this is the Conklin All-American Raven Black. It's a chunky pen. It's a great pen, but it's probably a little bit, I don't know, I find it very chunky for me. So I've had it for, I don't know, quite a while, and I've enjoyed using it, but time to say goodbye. And the same with this Conklin Durograph in the Abalone Nights finish. It's a really pretty pen. It has an Omniflex nib. But you know what? I have this one that I really love that has an Omniflex nib, and I just sort of think I don't need two of them, and I actually prefer this one. So that's going to be going to a new home too. So that is how many pens? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 pens are going off to new homes. Some of them will be gifted, some of them will be sold, but as I said, that will help me to fund new pens and buy maybe a higher end pen. I think this year I want to concentrate on quality over quantity, and sort of try pens that I've always really loved and admired, but never really had the budget to buy. In saying that, my husband and kids are very generous. They will often ask me, say, what do you want for Mother's Day, Mum, or you know, your birthday or Christmas, and I'll always say a fountain pen or a fountain pen ink. And they've been very generous over the years and bought me fountain pens when I've wanted them and things for my birthdays or whatever. So there will still be new pens this year, but I just think I'll be slowing down on the less sort of inexpensive pens this year, and maybe saving up and getting a better quality pen or a higher end pen, if that makes sense. Does this make sense? I don't even know if I'm making sense. It makes sense to me in my head, but yeah. So anyway, and I mean, I feel like hobbies and fountain pens and things, it's a very personal journey. Like, everyone's journey is very different. Everyone gravitates to different things. So, and I mean, for me, over the years, it's changed too. At first, I just wanted to try every single pen. And then I realised that just wasn't attainable. So then I've had to be more selective over the years. But yeah, what I do know is that I really love bespoke pens. So I love pens that have been made by handmade pen makers, because they're not your run-of-the-mill pens that you can just buy online and, you know, there's 1,000 of them made or whatever. So I think that's something I want to sort of look into a little bit more. As I said, I want to try a Sailor Pro Gear Slim. Why can't I say that? Sailor Pro Gear Slim. I want to try one of those this year. There's also a Pilot Vanishing Point, and it's like it's called Stripes. It's like silver and stripes, and I love the Pilot Vanishing Point that my husband and kids got me for my birthday last year, which is in the matte black. It's just such a beautiful pen, and just that being able to click and go and write function is wonderful. So that's another one I've got on my wish list. And there's other ones as well, but you know, we'll just stop there. So anyway, I hope that wherever you are, that you're having a wonderful day or evening. Happy New Year to everyone. I can't believe it's the 9th of January already. But yeah, so I hope you're well, stay well. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you back here next time, hopefully. Okay, bye.